It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. Hey, we're back. Another podcast. With us today, we have Chad Juttner, one of our frequent regulars, and we have joining us I think this is the first time we've got Justin Jordan. Did I get that right?
Yep, you got it. Two first names, all accounted for.
Awesome. And I'm Kyle Bacher, and today we're going to talk connectivity technology type stuff, and also van life, working in IT as a nomad. So we have the expert about that. We have an actual nomad living van life that works for us. That would be Justin. Chad would, but he can't fit all of his memorabilia in a van and his family.
Gotta shed the stuff.
So, I did some research. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was. Like the whole van life thing has really taken off. As a way of life. It has become a way of living, and a legit way of living. It's new and different, so there's always that fear around it. But it sounds like kind of the stigma is going away because you're responsible for, showing up to work and having the technology to do your work from wherever you're at. It's like if you have a house. So the only thing is like variable proximity. So how has the kind of latest advancements in bandwidth, throughput, ISPs, connectivity, all of that made this possible?
Well, I feel like it's been possible at least for the last decade or two, with like satellite internet. The traditional satellite internet, or like a lot of RVers, they'll just use the RV, like the RV park Wi-Fi. It's been possible, but recently there's been Starlink, which is a big one, and then 5G have really made it way more doable, especially with video calls. Because, prior to video calls, you could probably get by with slow speeds, but, just emails, right? But these days, everybody wants it to be face-to-face. So having a good connection is really important these days.
What is your setup then to stay connected? What gear do you use?
So when I first started this, I thought Starlink was going to be enough. I was really excited about it. Like, oh, now I got Starlink. I can just go anywhere with it. Well, turns out it's really good for download speeds, but upload speeds, it's like kind of lacking. Plus, if you don't have a perfectly clear view of the sky, it'll jump from satellite to satellite. And if you're in the middle of a Zoom call or like a video call, you'll notice like a little dropout. And when I first started doing interviews a couple months ago, when I was actually looking for a job, and when I came back to SDG, I was doing interviews and I was noticing my calls were like dropping out, and I was probably losing prospective employers because of it. So I ended up having to get a second redundant internet service provider and looked around for different hotspots, but I ended up landing on Verizon Home, which it's not sold as like an RV internet. Like, I'm afraid of like burning it, but like right now you can use it on the road, which is it's great. And it's only like $35 a month. So whereas Starlink is like $150 to $250 a month. So big price difference there too.
So Justin, you're a front end developer. Chad, are you more of a full stack developer, would you say?
I can do very basic things on the front end. Old. And so I get grumpy about all the constant rate of change on the front end. The back end for me is warm, comfortable, nice, steady rate of change that I can keep up with. Front end stuff for me, I will do a thing or two here. If you ask me to change a label, I'm your guy. If you ask me to, recite when I should use a promise versus a whatever, I'm going to defer to Justin all the time.
Right on. You don't want to learn a new framework every year? It's a thing you're excited about?
There was a time and a place, and this is not the time anymore. Yeah. So I will do it. I'm sure I will get caught up at some point. But I am very fortunate to be surrounded by guys like Justin and other folks at SDG that are more than willing to take on this work and do the things that I am too old and grumpy to tackle.
Yeah, we really do have a rock solid front end development.
So Justin, I was thinking about, between Starlink and 5G and everything else, all the technological leaps that have come into play to make your lifestyle kind of not even really, it's easy for you to live the lifestyle you're doing, right? Because when I started my career, like I had to go into an office where I had a PC that was plugged into a wall constantly that had a token ring network. I don't know if you guys remember token ring, but that was a thing. We
Coax, token ring Terminators.
Networks. And so in order for me to do work, in order for me to do a lot of things, that happened in the office. And it wasn't until about, 2002, 2003, where like we started to become untethered a little bit, but it was still untethered, but offline, right? So we had our laptops, but they weren't necessarily worthy laptops, right? Like there were laptops that you could write Word documents on and do whatever. You couldn't really do development on them, right? Like I couldn't necessarily early on put what was the precursor to IntelliJ. IBM's Visual Age was my dev tool of choice in the early 2000s. Like those things were too heavy. You'd still need a desktop machine with, at the time, 8 gigs of RAM, which was ridiculous. And so like it's things like that the little leaps that we've made that have seemed so obvious to us today, but not so obvious back then. So for you, going from desktops to laptops for development and everything, going from wired desktops to like even wired laptops first, right? Like you could go to an internet cafe and jack into, an Ethernet port first, and then even that became you'd have to put the wireless what was it, PCI card in.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
And to today, where it's like I'll just use my phone as a hotspot, and I'll have a battery that lasts me. They say it lasts 24 hours. In reality, I'll get a good 4 hours out of it, maybe for the first year, and two the next year, and 5 minutes every year after that. All of that stuff is just put you on a path to be like in a van. On a beach in Michigan, having the absolute time of your life. I could not have pictured that.
Wait. You mean like a beach like that?
Yeah. That's awesome.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of ridiculous when you see all the little steps that we've taken to make you prime Justin right now, right? Like, how could this possibly get better for you? I mean, the view that you just showed us, that's your view looking out your window. It's amazing.
That's my desk view. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I can't even imagine having a full-size desktop in this thing. Because, like, living in a van, I mean, an RV wouldn't be as bad, but a van space is a priceless commodity. So, like, having a desktop and a CRT monitor and all that stuff, like, you couldn't do van life 20 years ago. I mean, not work full remote. Now I'm working off of a MacBook Air, which has plenty of performance for what I need. So, it's not bad. Doesn't take any power. Doesn't have any fans that scream at me.
So, we talked about the kind of the hardware stuff coming up through the years. And what is that? How has that affected the tools that we have now and for the way we work? It's all like we're all in the cloud. Everything SDG does, we're in the cloud. We don't have any running servers on site. I shut them all off, and I was so proud that day of saving so much cost on electricity, which is apparently just included in our lease. So my heart sunk, but but still, it's a good thing. And so that made it possible because that's all built for people to access through the internet remotely instead of plugging in and getting that bigger bandwidth speed to a server that's 20 feet away or on the next floor. So that's kind of come along. How has that affected the way you work?
One thing that comes to mind is just, as a front-end developer, I'm using NPM for everything. And if I'm on LTE, downloading node packages or installing a new package is like, I got to walk away from my computer and go and like have lunch and then come back, and, maybe it's installed. Okay. That's a big change up. But cloud storage is great. I don't have to have a big rack of, I don't have to have like a server or anything where I store all my photos, videos, and non-work related stuff. That's definitely nice. But luckily, I'm not running a web server out of my van.
I remember one of my early gigs was I was doing network administration, system administration, and a little bit of development, and we were responsible for. We thought hosting was going to be a big deal. So not only we were a company much like SDG, but we also had this hosting environment. So not only will we build your applications for you, we'll host it in our data center. And our data center was located in Butler Square, right across from Target Field, if you're familiar with Minneapolis. And managing I had a rack of Citrix routers, Sunny 250s, all that stuff. And you were literally tethered to the office once again, because even back then, setting up a VPN into the office wasn't as seamless as it is today. So VPNs are another, those have existed for quite a while, but ease at which you can just like click a button, I'm on the VPN right now, right? Like that wasn't a thing 20 years ago, I don't think. It was, you had a SaaS application or you went to the office. You didn't really have both things, or you had some ridiculously complex arrangement of SSH tunnels to get into your equipment. So to Kyle's point, like the cloud doesn't really change the way we work. It just untethers us from having to be present, having to babysit our servers, having to be in the room with our servers, which thank God we don't have to do that either, because we always kept it really, really chilly. And I love the cloud. I love not having to worry about that aspect of our job anymore, right, Justin?
Yeah.
Because like for us, it's not even like in the old days, we weren't necessarily just software developers. We were software developers / network engineers / sysadmins. We had to know a little bit about everything because nobody is like super competent in all those roles. So we had to know enough to tell the guys that did have those roles if something went wrong, hey, can you check this? Can you check this? Can you check this? Right? And now we're just like, no, you know what? Honestly, AWS is AWS, and as long as we got that stuff configured properly, we'll get a DevOps nerd to help us get it set up properly. But then hands off, we don't have to deal with sysadmins anymore at all, which is
right. I can imagine. So I didn't ever have to do this, but having physical servers, I mean, you almost have to, like you said, you got to kind of babysit them. I can imagine a lot of IT folks couldn't work out of an office or outside of an office, because what if you got to turn it off and back on again? You can't really do that. I mean, you can do that remote, but what if you need to hard power it down? So I could see that being a real problem. But now, yeah, if we're all on the cloud, we just call up Amazon and have them do it. It
wasn't even the physicality of it, right? But it was just another layer that we had to be conscious of. Another point of failure, another layer, another thing that we had to know, another tool we had to have in our tool belts to be able to say, hey, we built you this beautiful architecture, this wonderfully scaled whatever. And if it's not doing whatever, if it's not producing widgets, the amount of finger pointing that went on 20 years ago was ridiculous. Like, no, it's a network problem. No, it's not a network problem. Well, can you do this? Well, no, but like that's still not a network problem. It was just it was a much more stressful job 20 years ago. Not that it isn't now, but it was harder.
It's the web service provider. No, it's the DNS. No, it's your WordPress site. No, it's something else. We still have some blame problems with hosting providers and stuff like that, because you've got those different chunks of the internet that you're tying into. But yeah, it was crazy 20 years ago with that stuff.
Hey, and Justin, how does the Starlink stuff work? Getting back to what we were supposed to talk about, ISPs in 2023 and that sort of thing. Right. With Starlink, right? So you're in your van, you have Starlink, you have 5G. I kind of tapped out of that thing once we had Minnesota pretty much wired all the rural areas a long time ago. Thanks, Amy Klobuchar. I think that was one of her bills that she had passed. So like my parents used to have satellite internet. Well, their neighbors did. Then I had a Pringles can that pointed at their neighbor's Wi-Fi. Nice. But I remember even then it was like, what was it? It was pretty much dial up to send your requests up, and then you get high speed down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's high latency. That's a big problem with traditional satellite internet, I guess I'll call it. A lot of latency. But with Starlink, they have low orbit satellites. So the latency I've seen has been like between 20 to 50 milliseconds. So it's a lot better. It's more doable for video calls, but you can use it for video calls. It's not perfect, but.
So upstream to Starlink, you're still talking. Your laptop isn't directly talking to a satellite, is it, or is it?
So the way it works is you have a dish, and the dish is talking. Well, obviously, the dish is talking to the satellite, and then
got it.
There's a router, and then you're talking to the router, obviously. But it talks to the satellite, and then the satellite talks to a ground station, I believe. So depending on where that ground station is in the country, that can actually affect your speeds and latency.
Okay, so I go from laptop to the dish, and the dish probably has Wi-Fi built in, right?
So the dish itself doesn't, but the cable, which there's power over Ethernet that goes through it, and the router that you plug into, that's where you can get your Wi-Fi.
So dish to router, Wi-Fi to the router. and then dish to low orbit satellite, satellite back down to ground station to dish again, and then
ground station would be to the internet then. Yeah.
All right.
So then my location will be the ground station usually if I check the IP.
Do you know where those ground stations are, and do you take that into consideration when you travel?
I don't think about that, but I think there is actually an app out there. It's like Starlink map or something where you can actually see where all the stations are and where all the satellites are in orbit. If it's Starlink map or something like that, if you Google it, you can find it pretty quick.
So
how do you? Oh, go ahead, Chad.
I was going to say, so this was a thing with the Ukraine war, right? Like, wasn't Elon flying some Starlink satellites low orbit over Ukraine because they would take out the internet providers, and he would just kind of low orbit his satellites over Ukraine?
Well, I think Elon sent a bunch of dishes to Ukraine and then allowed them to use the internet for free without they didn't have to activate them. I think I don't know a ton about the details, but he sent a bunch of dishes over to them. There was something where I think he shut the internet off for like countries around Ukraine. I'm not really sure. Not a political guy.
Me neither. I just thought that whole story was until like something got shut off, and I was like, all right, that's less cool now. But what the hell do I know?
I think the point of Starlink was, or at least Elon's initial reason for starting it, was to give internet to third world countries where otherwise they would have no access to it. So like Ukraine is a perfect example of why he wanted to start it, and I'm guessing why he ended up sending them a bunch of dishes.
Yeah, I don't know the politics and all of those details behind it, but I do remember that. So you have to work. You got to do your work and show up and knock it out of the park. How do you ensure that happens? How are you set up to have power, have internet, all that every day?
Yeah, I could. Do you guys want to hear the specs?
Yeah, give us the rig rundown.
I did a little bit of homework here. So my power system, that was the first thing I did. I have two 206 amp hour 12 volt SOK batteries, which gives me it's 412 amp hours or 5,000 watt hours of power, which is like way more than I need. The batteries that I have are lithium phosphate. They have built-in heaters. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I built a Victron system. So there's a couple different brands that people go with when they build these off-grid power systems. Victron or Renogy are the two big ones. So I went with mostly Victron components. I have a Victron links, shunt, and distributor. And the shunt is what measures the charge and discharge. This distributor is where I can plug in panels and chargers and stuff. And then to charge, right now I don't have solar or anything. I just have an alternator charger set up. So I have two Victron Orion DC to DC chargers, which gives me, each has 30 amp, like it pulls 30 amps from the alternator. So I have two of those, so I can do 60 amps from the alternator, which goes to the batteries and charges them. And then lastly, I have an EcoFlow Delta Mini, which is a portable power station that I can charge. Like I have a cable that comes out of my battery distributor, and I can charge that, and that gives me an additional 1,000 watt hours of power. The main thing I use that for is AC appliances because I don't have an inverter screwed to the wall yet.
Yeah,
that's an upgrade coming. But I pretty much have gotten by with just the EcoFlow. Like anytime I need to plug in Starlink or the Verizon router, because those are both AC powered, I plug into the EcoFlow. It's cool because I can unplug it and I can bring it to like a picnic table or something, and I can work from the picnic table.
So if you don't drive it at all, how much battery, how many hours do you think will last?
I could probably get by for like a week pretty good.
Wow.
Without charging, yeah. And it's funny, when I first set it up, I actually had the shunt misconfigured. I had it set up for 200 amp hours, and recently I realized I must have either forgot to save it or change it. When I flipped it to the 412 amp hours, now I can't get below 90%. Like I haven't been below 90% capacity yet. So
that's cool.
So I probably went overkill with that.
So how often do you change your location?
I'm pretty much moving every day, which is why I stay above 90%. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I almost never stay in one spot more than 2 days. It just gets boring. Yeah.
And like when
it's funny you say, I mean, I'm literally here 24/7.
Yeah, you guys.
I agree with you, man.
No.
This gets really boring. Hey, when are you coming home, Justin?
In about a month. Sometime.
Minnesota is home, right?
It is home. So, but like my setup being a nomad, I actually don't I legally don't have a physical legally I have a physical address, but I don't actually have a physical address. So I'm a legal Texas resident right now. I just have a mailbox down there, mail service. At some point I might. I don't really like change it if I don't have to.
Early in my career, I did work with a bunch of consultants who were 100% travel, right? So like they weren't doing what you're doing. Their gig was like, hey, you're going to be in this city for X amount of weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. And then you're going to go here, and then you're going to go here, and you're going to go here. And if you want, you can fly home on the weekends, right? I worked with a bunch of those guys. Almost all of them had set up their home address at either their parents' house or a P.O. box to get all their mail. Yeah. And then lived off of per diems, and then they got extra money because they weren't traveling on the weekends. They literally had 7 days a week of per diem to spend, and literally banked 100% of their paychecks in their mid-20s to like their however long they could actually survive like that. And I am so jealous of those guys because a lot of those guys retired at like 45, and I feel like you're kind of living that same life, right? Like
I do feel like that actually. I feel I have a lot of conversations with the retirees, like when I'm on the road, older people walk up and ask me about the van and stuff, and I feel like maybe I'm joining the wrong crowd, but I feel like I'm on vacation 100% of the time.
Yeah. So have you, are there communities? Are there people that you see frequently, or places you go where there's communities? I heard a story about, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not a super social guy, so I'm not like a part of any groups or anything that I frequent, but I do actually talk to a lot of people at the RV parks. They seem to be like super friendly. Yeah. And, whether I like it or not, they're going to come and chat with me, and it's usually a good time though. Yeah. Asking me about me and my vans. So can't be mad about that.
I heard that I don't know who I was talking to, told me that Amazon around the holidays has, kind of a pickup spot where they'll, people can have their stuff shipped to, and then they'll just go pick it up. They have this giant facility with this huge parking lot with Wi-Fi, and a lot of the van life, snowbirds, people like that go park there. And they let them park there so they can do all their shopping.
That's awesome. And that's tricky. Getting packages on the road is a pain.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's going to be an industry that pops up to make, to support van life better, or call it. So. Yeah, it's not homeless, it's houseless. Yeah. I think that's the term. I think like my brother's a painter, and last week he spent $150 on gas. And he lives, he's got a nice little basement apartment, but he's not in love with it. And he doesn't have a full kitchen. So he's kind of living, van life in that basement with his hot plate and his microwave. But, I wonder if you could do that just in a city because of the work you do. You drive to the job site, and that's where you live, and then you do your work, and your next gig, you drive there, so you're not going that back and forth all the time. It's, it's like I was actually looking into that now, and I'm super curious about it, like just to recommend it. You made a comment. It's not exactly saving you on rent or paying a house payment. Right. I mean, there's costs.
There's a lot of costs, yeah. Yeah, that's the misconception. I think it's possible to save money doing van life if that's your goal. But my goal is to see the country and to, live my best life. So it's actually, I would say, way more expensive. It's, I don't know what the exact number is. I want to say it's 25% more than what it cost me to live in Austin, and I was living downtown in a nice apartment,
Okay.
So it's more expensive than living in a swanky apartment downtown Austin.
Yeah, because you're kind of doing high travel, so you're going every day. What do you spend on fuel every month, if I can ask that?
Yeah, so when I stick around, since I've been working, I move around a lot less. Even though I am traveling, this month I went from Minnesota to Michigan now, and it's been about $635 in diesel this month for about 2,600 miles is what I think the math works out to be. So in this vehicle, I'm getting 17 miles to to the gallon, give or take, and it's about $4 per gallon for diesel. So that gives you kind of an idea.
So when I have to ship you a laptop for an engagement, where am I sending it? I have to target you, get a drone, follow you around.
That's the tricky thing. I mean, I do have the mail service, so if you wanted to ship something to me, you could send it to the mail service, and then I could have the mail service send it to wherever I am, indirectly, or hotels.
Right.
The co-working space WeWork, I have a subscription for that, but I think I'm going to let it lapse because I never use it.
Right.
Could do that, or post offices. They have some of them. They'll allow you to send packages directly to the post office.
Okay.
That's another option.
I think UPS has UPS stores that you can ship to as well.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
I think so.
Too, right?
Don't hold me to that, but
yeah. Amazon has they have the boxes all over the place too, which is nice.
Right. I'm a bit concerned about the ergonomics of your workspace. Are you able to sit comfortably and not get carpal tunnel in your neck or whatever that is?
Yeah, well, right now I'm sitting in a camping chair, so that's probably not great. I got to upgrade that and maybe actually get an ergonomic keyboard, because right now I'm just using the laptop keyboard. So I still got a lot of building to do in this van. I want to do a permanent desk and comfortable seating and stuff and all that.
Yeah.
Tell us the make and model of the van. What are we dealing with here? Is it a...
Yeah. So I ended up going with the Mercedes Sprinter just because it has all the bells and whistles. When I first started looking into it, I was looking into getting a used Ford Econoline, but the ones I was looking at were crappy. So I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, So I ended up getting a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, 2500 4x4. And I have the turbo diesel 3.0 liter V6 engine. So it's the big boy. Yeah, so that gives me the best fuel economy. And also I can feel super manly being able to say that I got a turbo diesel.
Yeah. Those are nice.
And the 4x4.
What kind
It's sweet, though. I actually use that 4x4 all the time.
Any catastrophes so far? I would imagine something has to have happened traveling through. Oh, yeah. What was it?
It's not the worst thing in the world, but when I was at a dispersed campground, which was, one of the places where I needed 4x4 to get to, and I took a wrong turn and I went down a trail that was too narrow, and I ended up scratching the whole side of the van on a tree branch, I got a buddy that paints, so I can fix the scratch, but the dents are going to be, probably visible. So
that'll buff right out.
But
Don't worry about
it. So you work though. Knock on wood, hasn't been so bad. No catastrophes.
So you work from the van. You sleep in the van, right? And then you park at RV camps and stuff. Shower and take care of all the other business, and then you just travel. You'll go to a spot, stay there for however long you want to, map out the next RV park, go there, camp, and then that's your life, right?
It's a big mix of stuff. I'll stay at RV parks. Sometimes on the weekend it's easier or it's better to stay at the RV parks because then I know where I'm going to be and I don't have to worry about that, so I can actually enjoy my time there. But during the week, I kind of just bounce from, Cracker Barrel parking lot to Walmart parking lot to dispersed campground to right now I'm on a random beach, which is kind of dispersed campground. Yeah, it's a mix of things. That's part of the fun, though, trying to figure out where am I going to go? Where am I going to stay? It can be stressful, though. That's why on the weekend, I typically just stay at an RV park or a campground so then I can just have fun.
Yeah.
Do you make so I imagine you're eating out all the time, right? Or do you have cooking, you got a stove, do you have, or are you living off of Taco Bell and Chipotle?
Yep.
Are you really?
A lot of the times. I actually just recently got a Blackstone griddle, and I have this big drawer that I built that slides on the back of the van, and at the very end of it, there's a Blackstone griddle, and I've been trying to use that more, to eat a little healthier. I mean, I'm still eating hot dogs and stuff, but eating fast food. And that actually factors into the cost now that you bring that up, because I think food costs have gone up at least 20-30% moving into the van just because I have to go to restaurants a lot just because I don't have a kitchen yet.
Was it modded when you got the van?
No, it was just a completely empty commercial utility van. So everything that is in here is something I built. So everything's DIY.
Okay.
Which, has its upside and downside. I've done everything and I feel proud of that, but it's also if I want a fridge, not only do I need to go out and buy a fridge, but I need to build a place to store the fridge.
Right.
Cabinets, I got to build the cabinets, all that stuff.
And that full-size side-by-side stainless steel Whirlpool or Kenmore going to be hard to fit in there.
I could put it next to my jacuzzi. Yeah, it's like right next to it. It's a little cramped, but it'll work.
Do you, because there's a lot of people that like put videos of their van life experience out on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you ever communicate with them or watch those videos?
Yeah, through YouTube mostly.
Okay.
I've never been to a meetup. They got meetups all over the place, and I really should push myself to actually go to one. So like I said before, I'm not super social, but yeah, there's people online that I kind of chat with a little bit here and there.
You'll have to come out of your shell, your giant Mercedes shell. So I kind of want to touch back on the work stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the Mac, the MacBook, and that's able to do everything you needed to do.
Yeah.
Do you find that like has it changed the way you do anything within your work?
Honestly, it doesn't feel like a lot has changed. I like the monitor size. That's about that's the only big change. Like instead of having a big monitor on the wall, I have a little laptop screen, and if I want a secondary monitor, I use my iPad, which I can tether the iPad to it, and then I got dual screens. Other than that, network speeds, like I was saying before, with the NPM packages, that's that can be a little bit of a pain. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. I'm in a text editor all day. Sometimes I do video calls.
And as we progressed through this, the last 20 years of expanding our bandwidth and moving the ball forward and cloud and all of that stuff, has that changed the way you do development?
Yeah, not that I can think of. You mean just in general, just now that we're working from the cloud more, like
just the way you like the considerations in like pages you're building.
Building.
Yeah.
I feel like since bandwidth has gotten so much better, I don't even really think about like image sizes and package sizes anymore, where maybe other people will like scoff at that. But I just feel like at this point, it's not even a problem. But being that I am a nomad and I do have limited bandwidth, I do notice now a little more. I think I'm a little more sensitive to it, where when I go to a page and it takes a while to load, I'm like, man, they should have, optimized this build or something.
Yeah. So you're a little more empathetic to like people with lower bandwidth, with crappier internet,
right?
Which is a good thing. Like that's, I think there's still a lot of people that have fairly slow internet. I know my mom is still on DSL up in the Northwoods, Bigfoot territory.
Kind of
Chad, for you mentioned that you don't think about it anymore either when we were talking yesterday.
Not really, no. It's been more than a decade since I really cared. I remember the last time actually caring was when we were starting with the streaming stuff. My daughter would have 3 screens in front of her, the television set, her iPad, and her phone, all streaming consecutive, or simultaneously. And this is when I've only been working from home for literally a decade, right? And it was one day, I was not a fan of it. I hated it, and I'm still kind of on the fence. I used to I'd tell noticeably slower speeds even a decade ago with all of that going on at home, plus me trying to work connected to a VPN all day, doing at the time Maven builds relatively regularly. It was the last time I cared. I don't anymore because it's one of those things like electricity now, where it's just there almost all the time. And I think about internet connectivity as a commodity now, just like I do heating and water and electricity and everything else. And I think of it in the same sense, like when you're traveling, like for Justin, right? Like when you're going where you're going, those commodities that we're used to at home aren't commodities in a van in the middle of Winnipeg or wherever the hell. Right. So you got to think about those. So where do you get your water? Where do you get your heat? Where do you get your plumbing? And then also we're talking about now, where do you get your internet? Yeah. So
that goes back to the question of, is there anything different, working in the van? The one thing that I've taken measures to make sure that it's not different is the internet having the redundancy, because that, like I was saying before, it was a problem when I only had Starlink. But now I've made sure to have Starlink, Verizon, my phone, my iPad both have hotspot capability. And then I have, just in case, I have a router that I can put SIM cards in, and I could use that if everything else failed.
Or just drive up to the Starbucks.
Yep.
Get on the free Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
Well, it's so interesting. With what I do, it's just not feasible because I have this constant flow of that I work with. with all the laptops and all of that stuff. So, and I like being in the office, but it's like when you think about retirement and stuff like that, knowing that's an option is kind of cool. And thinking that, this with, it's how rough it is buying a house, high interest rates, rent prices, things like that. And then travel costs, leaving home, doing the empty nester, having two different places. It seems like just getting in your awesome van with all the essentials and heading out. Yeah.
I feel like a lot more people in the tech industry should actually take advantage of the fact that we are remote, and you don't have to necessarily do full time like I'm doing, but you could get maybe a small van or an RV and take it out for, a week or a couple of weeks and just, kind of experience the RV life or the van life without having to, fully commit to it. It's pretty doable.
That's kind of, I wasn't in a van or an RV, but I did that this week, right? Like the ability for us, like we were talking about earlier, I could just take my work laptop up to a cabin up in Nisswa and work from there, and it's relatively seamless, right? And what you're saying is my plan too. Like at some point, I'm going to abandon the Twin Cities and move up to way the hell up there, where we have bandwidth and all the commodity stuff that we just talked about, and I'll be able to be just as effective up there as I am down here. The baseball season will be problematic, but we'll work through that.
Yeah, I mostly say that too because I feel like before I started this, I kind of felt stuck. I'm always in my apartment, in my office working, and I kind of feel, tethered to that spot. And I'm glad I had the courage to just hit the road and do this because it's definitely, you're not stuck.
Yeah.
That's the one message I want to disperse out into the.
Yeah, man, I think there's a lot of guys that are going to read this, a lot of people that are going to listen to this, and we're going to be incredibly jealous, right? Because, I'm assuming no wife, no kids, right? They're not hiding in the front of the van, are they?
Yeah, that's another reason why I started doing it. I'm like, you never know, man. I might get tied down any moment.
Exactly.
Got a lot of prospects out there.
I told my youngest boy the exact same thing. I'm like, he came back from Kuwait. He's got all this money saved up from his deployment, and he moved to Nashville. And I'm like, yeah, man, go to Nashville. He's like, yeah, I might move to a different city and then a different one. I'm like, honestly, don't live anywhere. Just set your home address to mom and dad's house and go everywhere for a year, right? Because you're not going to have that opportunity again. You're not going to be able to do what Justin's doing. He doesn't know who the hell you are, but I'm using you as a surrogate for, a person that can literally do whatever the heck they want. And, yeah, man, I'm jealous, right? Like this seems awesome. I wish I would have thought of it when I was younger. And I wish it would have been a thing for me. I would have, do you follow sports teams? Do you follow anything? Or is your map of where you're going next just kind of random?
Oh, it's just random. Yeah. I'm just like, I pick a direction and that's probably a reason why my gas, I didn't actually mention before I was actually working at SDG, my gas, or my diesel consumption was like $2,000 because I was just circling and spiraling around the country. So that's really just, I kind of like east right now, and then I'll go east.
Yeah. Okay.
And just see what I run into.
Do you avoid, do you look at the weather and avoid the bad weather?
A little bit, not as much as I should though.
Okay.
Mostly it's just like, I kind of lick my finger, put my finger out, and if I feel like east seems like a good way to go, then I do that.
What do you use for navigation?
Away from the cities now. That's the main thing.
What's the best navigation app, do you think?
I pretty much just stick to maps.
Okay.
Yeah. If I even use navigation though, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know, I-90 seems cool.
So the first I heard about your lifestyle, your situation that you're in, the nomadic life, I was just a little bit taken aback because it was new and I hadn't really considered it, and I had some trepidations that I've gotten over now that I've done some research and all that. What kind of stigma do you think there is, and what kind of fight is there to just put people at ease that this is just another way that people live and it's not a big deal?
When I first started it, naively, I thought that people would just think it was really cool and not, it would be stigmatized. But when I started doing interviews, I was noticing a lot of like weird looks at first if I had the van, if I have the van in the background. So I found using a virtual background is essential, just so it's not like the first thing you talk about,
Right. Yeah.
Because I think there is a little bit of a stigma I don't know why, but there's a little bit of a stigma. Maybe they think that you're not reliable or that you're a weirdo or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, there was the Chris Farley bit from Saturday Night Live.
I've been avoiding it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. But
yeah.
I am like, so, I mean, you have piqued my curiosity, and now I'm going to start Googling, because I've seen those same, I think probably the same ride that you've got, the Mercedes, but they're actually decked out specifically for camping, right? Maybe it's a slightly different model, but it's basically the same idea.
Winnebago has one that they actually have. There's a bunch of them out there that you can just buy them already pre-built and stuff.
I mean, how great would it be to follow the Twins around the country next baseball season? Or one of my best friends is really trying to get me into hockey, so I could follow the Wild around for a hockey season or whatever. That actually sounds...
That could be really cool.
That would be great. Because right now, I mean, I'm just doing a team or two a year, right? I'm doing a stadium or two a year, but I'm flying, getting a rental, doing all that. I can just do it in a ride like you've got. That would be so much easier.
Yeah, and they got them all different sizes. Yeah, you're gonna do it. Nice. We got you.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, you can get a smaller one like mine, or you can get ones that are like the Class C, bunk beds and big king bed in the back and bathroom and all that stuff.
I don't need all that. I'm relatively compact, so I can fit anywhere. I can just recline a passenger seat, maybe. I don't know. You have piqued my curiosity. I might actually have to look into this.
Should, man. RV life.
Or van life.
Yeah. Van life. Well, that was always my lottery plan, is to get the biggest, nicest RV that they sell and then go into hiding.
Yeah.
You'll never find me. Awesome. Any parting thoughts before we shut her down, gentlemen?
We covered a lot of stuff that I was thinking about.
Yeah, I'm out of thoughts. And it's late on a Friday. My brain is empty.
It's all right.
The meat raffle and happy hour are in 2 hours. That's the only thought I have on my head right now.
I'm really excited to see where this goes and to look into it a lot more. I just find it fascinating. And I think that it's going to be, the whole idea of remote workers has had such a shift when it was finally proved out that we can do it. People are productive. We don't have to have them in the building watching them. Like, no, the technology's there. Everything's there. We've got face-to-face meetings and things like that. It's fine. So I'm just, curious to see that.
I think my dream would be to have a bunch of other SDGers that also do it, and then we could meet up occasionally.
Yeah. I thought
all meet there.
Yeah, I thought you could visit all of our satellite people that are working out of, a little farther out from Twin Cities. You could drop off SDG gear. And,
very good.
Swag. Yeah.
Hats,
all
shirts.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us, Justin. It's been fascinating hearing all about it. And
thanks for letting me share.
So when are the Twins going to win the Super Bowl? What date is that?
We're getting into October, so by the end of October we should be World Series champions.
Heck yeah.
And with that, I think that we'll say goodbye, everybody. Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.